One of India's leading and most successful early-stage investors, Saif Partners, has taken on a brand new identity. It will now be called Elevation Capital. Founded in 2002 as a joint India and China fund with SoftBank and Cisco, Saif Partners set up its India office in the same year. Their first investment in the country was in the information and communication technology space. In SIFI, with over $2 billion of assets under management, Elevation Capital has backed some of the most innovative and outstanding Indian startups, 7 of which have gone on to attain a unicorn status. In fact, the VC was ranked 4 on the Huron list of top unicorn investors in India in 2020. The India-focused investment firm has been an early investor in companies like Paytm, Swiggy, MakeMyTrip, Justdial, Unacademy, Meesho, Rivigo, ShareChat, FirstCry and Acko, and these are just the cream of the cake. Along with its new avatar, Saif Partners has also announced the close of its 7th fund at $400 million. With this fund, the company plans to hunt for startups in the consumer internet, consumer brands, B2B tech, and financial services space. Now, in the last 20-odd years, Saif Partners has been a champion of the Indian startup story and has acted as a force multiplier for the young founders it has supported as they metamorphosized into leaders of successful companies that are transforming India. Hello and welcome to Young Turks, India's longest-running show on startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Shireen Bhan, and joining me on the show today for the very first time on television to talk about the history of Saif Partners and the new avatar, the team behind the company, Deepak Gaur and Mukul Arora, both of them managing directors at Elevation Capital. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us here on Young Turks, and congratulations on the new identity. Deepak, let me start by asking you, why Elevation Capital? Is this just a change of brand identity, or is this going to resonate much deeper than that?
Sure, Shane. Great to be here, and thank you for having us on the show. I think it is important for me to lay out the legacy that was associated with Saif Partners, and hence the name change, which was long overdue. When we started out in 2001 and 2 as a Pan-Asia fund, initially the fund was called SoftBank Asia Infrastructure Fund, and then from Fund 2 and 3 onwards, it got rechristened to Saif Partners. Since 2010, once the team in India raised an independent dedicated fund of 350 million, over time we have made an independent brand identity. The name Saif Partners no longer represented truly what our value system and ethos is, and hence we decided to choose a name that reflects us, who we are, and what our aspirations for future are. In terms of the name specifically represents what we desire to do and our purpose is, which is working with founders who have global ambitions, create extraordinary companies, go further and higher, and which is what the name represents. In terms of overall ethos.
Well, that's the... Yeah, that's the story behind the shift to Elevation Capital. Mukul, something that Young Turks and Saif Partners, now Elevation Capital, shares is we started our journeys together. 2001, 2002 is when we started reaching out to the very small startup community in India, and so did you. So, and what a journey it has been over the last 2 decades. So, Mukul, let me start by asking you, from the likes of MakeMyTrip and Paytm to now the likes of Meesho and Rivigo, I mean, what significant changes we have seen within this ecosystem, but what to your mind have been the standout ones?
Sure. Shireen, first of all, thanks again for having us on the show. And I didn't know you guys also started 18 years back, so it's a great coincidence. And we weren't the only ones who saw potential in the Indian startup ecosystem as early as 2002. So to talk about changes that have happened in the startup ecosystem over the last 2 decades, so I would say if we look at last 10, 15, 20 years, right, it's in some ways still setting the foundation for technology and internet ecosystem in India. So if we look at sort of that foundation and double click on that, since the launch of Jio, we have seen number of internet subscribers in India go up significantly. And now almost half our population is connected. If we look at measures such as UPI, Aadhaar, the identity and payments layer in the country has been solved. And if we also look at, in general, our GDP growth and per capita income growth, from a disposable income perspective also, we are now at a place where our middle class, upper middle class is larger than many other countries out there. So I think last 15, 20 years overall have been about setting this foundation. And if we now double click on the founder side, we have seen a significant improvement in the quality of founders over the last few years. And I think their credit goes to early champions like Deep Kalra from Make My Trip, who showed how large internet businesses could be built out of India, to Vijay Shekhar Sharma from Paytm, to Bansal from Flipkart, who led the way. And now young people see becoming founders and starting up as a great opportunity, versus earlier it seemed like a big risk. So from quality of founder perspective also, we have seen a big shift over the last few years. So when we look at next 10, 15, 20 years, it seems like now is sort of the inflection point where we are going to see almost an explosion in startups as well as value creation in internet and technology space.
Yes, you're right. But let me get Deepak to comment a little bit more on that point that you raised about the explosion that is expected, given the many factors that you listed out. And now, of course, on account of COVID and the further acceleration of digital technology and the adoption of digital. But Deepak, to the point of founders and the quality of founders having improved significantly over the years, they've also gotten significantly younger, and they've also started to think much more global. What are the big changes that you've seen when we talk about founders who are setting up startups in India?
So, just echoing Mukul's point, the biggest change that I've seen is that creating or starting a startup is mainstream. It is no longer as a hierarchy of options. If you're truly passionate about an idea, it is one of the first things you want to think about. Overall, in terms of the approach that now we see founders take has matured quite a bit. In the early days, it was almost trying to copy what has worked in US, and then it became trying to copy what has worked in China. But I would say in the last 3 to 4 years, we have seen very disruptive business models where founders are doing bottoms-up thinking and coming up with ideas and solutions which are designed for India, which work in India. And Meesho is a great example, where something that was built and customized for India is now being copied in countries like Brazil and other countries. I think that is a big shift, because now we are seeing founders solving India-specific problems. Rivigo is another example of somebody taking bottoms-up thinking, fundamental thinking to solving the core logistics problem. That, I think, is a very heartening trend, because our country is complex and it is also very different from every other country in the world. And that first principle thinking will really take it further.
Mukul, to the point that Deepak was making, that we've seen that evolution of moving from copy-pasting what was working in the US, China, and now building for India, building from India for the world. How has the investor mentality, the investor approach also changed, along with the fact that we've seen businesses change and the way that founders are operating change?
So I think there are a few sort of things which have changed about investors as well. One is, if you see, again, like Deepak mentioned, the first wave of startups where there were proven business models that e-commerce works, cab hailing works, and therefore the amount of, to some extent, risk-taking as an investor was also lower, because you knew that those business models were going to work. Whereas if you look at many of these business models which are now starting up, there, even from an investor perspective, you have to be much closer to the ground. You have to understand what's happening, and therefore which are the areas or which are the markets which are likely to take off. That is one. Second, the point which you touched upon, which is that founders now have global aspirations. They are not just going after the India market. And therefore, as investors, we have to also support them in their global go-to-market. So you can't, again, just be focused on the domestic market. You have to work with the founders in helping them solve their sales and distribution and expansion globally. And third is, the role of investor has changed beyond just being a provider of capital. So we have also started to invest heavily in what we call portfolio support services. So you have to work with the founders in helping them with marketing, in helping them with finance, helping them with technology, so that when we are investing in companies which are super young, super early, we can bring a lot more than just capital for those companies. So I think as the overall the ecosystem has matured, even as investors, our role has become much broader.
Yes, the investor role has become much broader. Adult supervision beyond capital is also what is being provided by the likes of Deepak and Mukul. But Deepak, let's talk about the fresh investments that have happened, and let's talk about the list for 2020. Jodo, Zomendum, City Mall, Front Row, Strata. Camp K-12. So you've gone from fintech, SaaS, social commerce, online learning, realty platform, edtech. So clearly, you continue with that sector agnostic approach. What is it that you're looking for when you put fresh money in today?
Yeah, no, that is correct, Shri. We work as a sector agnostic fund, and I would say that we have amongst the widest sector coverage in the country today. And in spite of that, we believe we have done well because we look for some core principles in every business, and that is independent of the sector. The first thing that we really look for is whether it is a large problem, and it is if a viable solution or a product market fit is found for that solution, will it create a disproportionate market? That market might not exist today, but can it be created over 5 to 8 years? And that is a strong lens we take. The second lens we really push hard on is founders' understanding of the problem. Is it, as we both mentioned earlier, is it something that we are trying to copy or replicate from other markets, or is it a problem that we deeply understand? Because only then a genuinely innovative solution can be found out. The third thing we look for is capital efficiency. While capital availability in India follows cycles, sometimes there is too much capital, and sometimes the capital becomes quite scarce. It is always important for founders to be capital efficient, at least until the product market fit is found. Then you can obviously spend in marketing and scale it up. So I would say those three things we definitely look for. And finally, something which COVID has made supremely important, it always was, but it has almost become mandatory now, that digitization is no longer discretionary. So whether the team has a strong product technology DNA, and are they willing to complement the core understanding of the problem with a very deep technology solution, that's something which is overarching. And we use this lens, do a bottoms-up work for any sector. And wherever there is a meeting of minds, we would be very excited to partner.
Okay, we are going to discuss a little bit more about this meeting of minds and what you intend to do with that seventh fund that you've just closed, $400 million. We will discuss that and more when we return. We're in conversation with the team at Elevation Capital, the erstwhile CEF partners. You're back on Young Turks in a moment. Well, with me, Deepak Gaur and Mukul Arora, both of them managing directors at Elevation Capital. Gentlemen, welcome back to Young Turks. Mukul, let me ask you about the plan now as far as the seventh fund is concerned, $400 million that you've managed to raise. What's the investment plan? What's the check size that you're looking for?
Shireen, we have remained very, very focused on early stage investments. And there we have sort of two guiding principles. One, as a team, we want to be extremely focused, and at each partner level, we want to make typically 2 investments in a year so that we can give enough personal attention, time, and commitment to each and every company that we are investing in. And second thing is that we want to partner with companies as early as possible, and which is what we have done historically as well. So a lot of names which you spoke about, Swiggy, Meesho, Unacademy, Urban Clap, all of these were very early stage investments for us. So the idea is to continue doing that. So we will stay very focused on being the first institutional partners with early stage technology companies. And our ticket sizes, given we are high conviction investors, we are even happy to invest $3 to $5 million at a paper plan stage or in a seed round. So that's the idea going forward.
Okay, so 2 investments in a year so that you can actually spend enough time with the startups that you invest in. But Deepak, let's talk about what the pipeline looks like now in terms of IPOs. You've got the who's who of the unicorn world as part of your portfolio. So within your portfolio and outside of that as well, do you expect IPOs over the next 2 to 3 years?
Oh, definitely. At least all of us believe, and I think that's a sentiment echoed by all participants in the ecosystem, that in the next 3 years, we will see significantly more tech IPOs than probably what we have seen in the last 20 years. And both either changes in regulation, focus of companies to improve profitability, maturing of most of these companies, all that will enable that finally the tech ecosystem IPO landscape will become very real.
Okay, so you do expect a bunch of IPOs over the next 2 to 3 years. Mukul, what's the story looking like now in terms of valuation? Also, with a much more sharper focus now on unit economics, on bringing down the cash burn. In fact, we've seen a bunch of companies, people like Swiggy, talking about how customer acquisition costs have come down, cash burn has come down quite significantly through the course of the pandemic. So, what should we now expect in terms of valuations going forward?
Sure, sure. Shireen, before I answer that, just one clarification. So I meant 2 investments per partner per year. So as a team, it would translate to 8 to 10 investments as a fund for us every year, not two as a fund. Yeah, yeah. Also, now moving on to your question around health of the company and unit economics, actually that has been a very, very encouraging shift over the last 8 to 10 months, where when we went into COVID, obviously, overall it was a very tough and very unfortunate what we are all going through right now, and hopefully it will be over soon. As a result of this, what has happened is all the founders really stepped back, looked hard at their businesses, and looked at each and every line item on their cost side, and took a call on what was needed, what was not needed. And as a result of that, what we have seen is companies have come out so much more healthier and so much more resilient. So across many companies, we are seeing their monthly cash burn is order of magnitude lower than what it was at the same time last year, even though in terms of scale, they have grown. In multiple companies, we have seen that profitability for them was almost 2-3 years away. And in last 6 months, they have leapfrogged that and they've become profitable. So that has been a very, very healthy trend. And it also ties back to Deepak's point that now that companies are profitable or path to profitability is very clear, many of them are IPO ready. And now it's only a question of timing and when those companies and their boards decide that it's the right time for them to go public. But many companies are IPO ready today if they wanted to list, whether it is on Indian exchanges or it is on international exchanges.
What's the likelihood of an international listing, given the fact that the regulations may be more conducive for that?
So we are all waiting for clarity on that. And once that comes out, obviously international markets are definitely an attractive source of capital for many of the technology companies, given overseas indices have seen technology companies listed and they have seen how those trajectories play out over the long run. So those are definitely good alternatives as well for Indian tech companies.
Yeah. Deepak, while we await clarity as far as the overseas listing issue is concerned, what about the change in the FDI guidelines, pretty much trying to scrutinize investments coming in from China? The DIPP secretary telling me very clearly that hundreds of applications are currently pending approval and clearance. How is this changing the nature of the game within the startup ecosystem specifically? And this business of unlocking domestic pools of capital, really risk capital, how do you see that changing, given the fact that there now seems to be much more of a validation of the Indian startup ecosystem?
Sure. So I think there are changes at 2 levels. One, it is not just investment capital that is being scrutinized, but even businesses like TikTok, for example, have been banned in India. And I think that change has definitely opened up the landscape for many Indian startups to build large and viable businesses, because they were otherwise they were competing with very, very well-funded companies from China who were not focusing on unit economics in the short run. So I definitely believe that is a very positive development for the Indian tech ecosystem. And it was not just content, but there were other verticals where we were seeing similar kind of either entrenched or emerging competition. So definitely it opens up much larger windows and areas where Indian companies can either expand today or new businesses can be created. From an investment capital standpoint for existing Indian companies, yes, China was a reasonable source of capital. In the short term, there will be a drying up of capital, but at the same time, we are seeing alternative sources of capital becoming much larger. So whether it is from US, even interest from Europe, and for example, all our investors in our fund are from US, and they have stepped up as we increased our fund size. So because the overall attractiveness of the market is going up, I think those are the 2 categories of changes I see.
Okay, so more investors coming in from the US specifically. But Mukul, we talked about everything that's working in favor for Indian startups today. But if I were to ask you to list out the key risks, what would those be?
So as we think of key risks, right, I think one of the biggest difference of if you look at Indian technology and internet market compared to other geographies is just the competitive intensity. And as Deepak mentioned, it has gone down a little bit because of restrictions being put on Chinese companies, but still it remains fairly competitive. It's an open playing field. There are a lot of large global technology companies which are playing in India. And obviously, in some ways, it's an unfair or it's not a level playing field because they are generating their profit pools in some other geographies and they can invest in Indian companies for very, very long periods of time without worrying about economics. So I think there creating a level playing field is important. And that is what I feel is like a big risk for younger startups in India who have to think about raising capital from external sources every year and a half, whereas the larger players can go on for 8-10 years, can go on investing for 8-10 years without worrying about that. So I think creating that level playing field is important.
Creating a level playing field is important, and in light of what we're seeing happen with Google as well, this is of course an issue. But gentlemen, before I let you go, I know this is an unfair question. It's like asking you to pick a favorite child, but I'm going to try nevertheless. Deepak, what's been your most memorable investment?
I can't say that. I think Sheen, the process that I laid out is so detailed and so selective that wherever we end up investing, it is always a very special relationship. Sometimes it is for different reasons. Somewhere it is the growth opportunity, somewhere it is the mission of the team, and somewhere it is the uniqueness of the business idea. So I think it would be very unfair for me to say which one is most memorable.
I expected that answer, but I was trying nevertheless. Mukul, I'll end by asking you your biggest miss.
So one company which actually I regret missing is Ola, which we had met in very early days. Really enjoyed meeting Bhavesh. He is very smart, one of the sharpest founders. And as Deepak also mentioned, like in early days, we used to focus a lot on market size. And we felt like the cab market size in India is not large enough, and will it become a large enough business or not? But sometimes what happens is that market is small, but the pain point is so severe that you can multiply that market manyfold, which is what Ola has done. So that is one company which I wish we were investors in.
All right, so Ola will go down as a miss. But gentlemen, you have a long and distinguished list of winners in your portfolio. And we do hope that you continue with that winning streak. Thanks very much for joining us here on Young Turks. We wish you the very best of luck in your new avatar as Elevation Capital. Deepak and Mukul, an absolute pleasure. We will take a break here on Young Turks. There's a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere. We're back in a moment.